And I feel now I've got a responsibility to you and other voters who ask me about this. And I think it is imperative that we look at the Keystone pipeline as what I believe it is, a distraction from the important work we have to do to combat climate change, and unfortunately, from my perspective, one that interferes with our ability to move forward to deal with all the other issues. Therefore, I oppose it.
She opposes the Keystone XL pipeline. Hillary Clinton, Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, 5 years ago.
As I say, we've not yet signed off on it, but we are inclined to do so, and we are for several reasons. Going back to one of your original questions, we're either going to be dependent on dirty oil from the Gulf or dependent on dirty oil from Canada. And until we can get our act together as a country and figure out that clean, renewable energy is in both our economic interests and the interests of our planet.
Well, there she is. There you see Bernie Sanders today on Twitter as a senator who has vigorously opposed the Keystone Pipeline from the beginning. I am glad that Secretary Clinton finally has made a decision, and I welcome her opposition to the pipeline. Clearly, it would be absurd to encourage the extraction and transportation of some of the dirtiest fossil fuel on the planet. Okay, we're back with the panel. George.
Well, her statement today was a howling non sequitur. She says it's a distraction, therefore I'm against it. You might as well say it's a distraction, therefore I'm for it, if all you want to do is close the question. But nothing better illustrates the descent of the American left, and environmentalism in particular, into infantilism than the idea that this is somehow connected, a pipeline, with global warming. It is only connected if you assume preposterously that these enormous reserves of oil in the tar sands of Canada are going to stay in the tar sands of Canada if we don't build a pipeline, which is absurd. Instead, they're going to turn the pipeline to the west, sell it to China, and they'll burn it there less responsibly than anywhere else.
Let alone, AB, all the arguments we've heard about transporting oil via truck or by rail and what the emissions look like there. We've heard the arguments for Keystone for many years. In fact, this study has been going on for some 6 years, and yet we just hear about this decision today from Hillary Clinton.
She painstakingly has told voters in these settings for months that she could not give her real opinion and make it public because it was being dealt with in the White House and it's a pending issue. For some reason today, I guess it's okay. Nothing's changed, but she decided that she has to tell her voters that she's opposing it after, 5 years before sounding like an advocate. This is what's happening. The only clock is the polling where she's deteriorating and the durability of the Sanders surge, and then the threat of Joe Biden entering the race. And she feels that the clock is ticking, the hour is late. You see a lot of aggressive leaking, not only by the Biden people, which they've made pretty obvious, trying to tease out a run, but little stories that are designed to make Joe Biden feel that it's scary, choppy waters and he shouldn't get in. Keystone's a part of that. It's just a response to her standing in the polls. Which
is really interesting, Tucker, because on the same day that she says that she opposes Keystone, she says she also opposes the Cadillac tax for Obamacare, which is a big thing for unions. That's a tip of the hat to unions, but unions like Keystone. So, she's pandering to all sides.
Right, but she doesn't ever have to explain it. This is the problem with theology. When you have to unpack it in the light of day, it's really embarrassing, which is why she doesn't bother. She says, I'm against Keystone because global warming, just because, and then she gets back into her campaign plan. It's just hilarious. This is mostly, and I'm glad you butted her statement against a statement from Bernie Sanders, this is a reaction, as AB suggested, to the Bernie Sanders campaign, which is not destined to win, but it doesn't mean it can't transform the nature of the race, and it has. It's pushed her dramatically to the left. Dramatically. And I have to say, if you're thinking about this long term, Bernie Sanders is not going to win the South Carolina primary, so people in Washington write him off. Consider the hundreds of thousands of college students we're grooming to run this country 20 years from now and their reaction to him. They love him. He's an extremist by any measure. What does that say about where we are and where we're going? I think it's ominous and worth paying attention to.
I want to read one thing from Dana Blanton, who heads up our polling unit. This is about the polls that we choose to use on air and at Fox News. The biggest problem with many online polls is that they reflect the views of those internet users who have chosen to participate. When people can opt in or self-select, the sample cannot be considered representative of the electorate. Another problem is that we know some campaigns or groups of supporters encourage people to vote in online polls and flood the results. News networks and other organizations go to great effort and rigor to conduct scientific polls for good reason. They know quick vote items posted on the web can't be trusted as true measures of public opinion. We mostly stick with telephone, landline, plus cell polls that use random sampling, a methodology that enables everyone an equal chance of being interviewed. Just wanted to get that out there. That's it for the panel. Stay tuned to find out why opposites don't attract when it comes to world leaders.